Stowaway, out on Netflix now, new film directed by Joe Pena, starring Anna Kendrick, Toni Collette, Daniel Day-Kim, and Shamir Anderson. It's a science fiction film, although in this case it's much, much more on the science part than the fiction, with maybe the exception of one key plot point, which is the basis of the premise, and I have to say it is fairly outrageous. So the film starts off with a launch of a spaceship manned by three people to go on a 2 year mission to Mars, do research, set up the colony, come back. The ship links up with sort of more powerful engine compartment part in orbit and then sets off for the red planet. But 12 hours after the launch, the crew discovers that they have a stowaway. An injured guy is found passed out behind one of the panels on the ceiling. He falls out, he's bleeding. Turns out he's one of the launch engineers who accidentally found himself on the ship when it got going. And initially, it seems like they can work it out. It's too late to go back, so he's just gonna join the crew, help out with some tasks, and they're gonna be mostly fine. But turns out when he was dislodged from the ceiling, he accidentally broke one of the important systems on the ship. That then kickstarts a cascade of problems which the crew has to solve in order to basically survive, let alone finish the mission. So, as I said, the central idea that a guy was left on a spaceship by accident is by all means ridiculous. But okay, if you can suspend the disbelief for just this one little part, the rest of the movie is actually impressive in terms of how much it makes sense scientifically. The problems faced by the crew and the solutions to them make a lot of sense. In fact, at one point, a solar flare comes into play, and I was like, really? Would that work like this? Isn't this stretching it a little bit? And I Googled it, and it really turns out that yes, in fact, it does work almost exactly as presented. And solar flares are actually one of the top concerns when it comes to future manned missions to Mars. So you have to give credit. Scientifically, the movie makes a lot of sense, and it even reminded me of The Martian in many ways. But the main thing that impressed me was that it kind of defied my expectations. See, I only saw like a minute of the trailer, and my impression based on that, as well as the tone of the film in the first half, was that there would be some sinister plot twist, that the guy was actually on the ship on purpose, he was a saboteur or something, or that he worked with someone else from the crew in secret, or that there would be some supernatural element maybe. And I kept waiting for something silly to happen, and it never did. We're not really exploring the circumstances of the accidental staying on the ship. The focus very quickly turns to the present situation and how to deal with it. Now, I know some people will say I have spoiled the entire movie, but here's what I think. A lot of people who would, like me, expect there to be something more would be really disappointed having watched the film because there is none. So maybe, this will just save them some time. I personally really liked the fact that the film didn't feel the need to rely on cheap excitement, instead opting for the slow, intimate problem-solving drama. And if you think about it, it actually turns out that for the most part, that whole sci-fi setting is just set dressing for a story that is concerned primarily with moral and ethical dilemmas. It's about sacrifice, life priorities, the ability to put the well-being of others above your own, and all the questions that come along with it. If the crew really has to sacrifice someone potentially, who should it be? Are their lives really equal as they perhaps should be, or do they have to look at it purely logically from a cold perspective in terms of training and who's the most useful to the mission? I really like these philosophical explorations that the movie presents us with, and also the climax of the film is really pretty damn gripping. I was on the edge of my seat for a good 15 minutes or so. Now, I do have one small issue. So for me, the film splits its attention 50-50 almost between the technical problem solving a la The Martian and the ethical dilemmas that go along with those. I think it just would have been a far better movie if the proportions were skewed one way or the other, so more like 80-20. And I don't even care which one of these themes would be the main one in that scenario. I just would have liked the movie to sacrifice some of one in order to better commit and explore the other. Because as it is, it just feels to me like it lacked that final step in either direction to go really deep and provide a strong, lasting impression, to make me wonder about it in the days following watching the film. As it is, we explore a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and don't get me wrong, I think what there is still pretty good, but it just comes short of excellence. Nonetheless, as I said, I really enjoyed the film, and I agree that the premise is silly, but it's really waved away quite quickly, and you realize that it only serves as a pretext to explore some ethical dilemmas. And here's the thing, I still think a lot of people will be disappointed by the precise thing that impressed me, which is that there's actually no grand mystery or supernatural element to the titular Stowaway. Which is a shame, because I think if you evaluate the film based on what it intends to be, it's really good.